Officer Strait, please stand. Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in this case before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I promise.
Prosecutor, you have 10 minutes to proceed. Please start.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Senior Officer Strait, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Can you please introduce yourself for the record?
My name is Senior Officer Strait. I'm 48 years old, and I have been a member of the Zaltono Police Force for the past 15 years.
How are you today?
Couldn't be better. Thanks for having me here today.
So, Officer Strait, what is your primary duty in the Zaltono Police Force?
I've worked as part of the traffic control unit for the past 8 years, and I have conducted numerous traffic checkpoints as part of my job responsibilities.
Okay. Can you tell me what happened on March 1st, 2020?
On March 1st, 2020, I was in charge of operating a traffic checkpoint on the corner of the Pacific Avenue and Astor Road. I set up the checkpoint at 10 o'clock in the morning. I set this up because we had received reports of drugs being moved along Pacific Avenue.
Okay. Who was with you?
I was accompanied by Officer 5.
Okay. Can you tell us about what happened around 11 a.m.?
Well, at 11 a.m., I directed an older model black BMW into the checkpoint. I introduced myself to the driver and then said, "This is a routine checkpoint stop. Where are you two heading today?" The driver, who introduced herself as Ultra Parker, responded by saying that she was out on a delivery run. She said she worked for a company called PDP.
Okay. So, Officer Strait, why did you decide to check her car?
As I approached the vehicle and saw two people in the front seat of the vehicle, I immediately recognized the passenger as Dane Carey from a previous arrest. When I inspected Parker's driver license, I noticed a packet of cigarettes on the dashboard, an open envelope containing cash in the central console, rolling papers, clips used baggies, and empty envelopes on the back seat.
Okay. Officer Strait, can you tell us what was the defendant's demeanor at that time?
The driver appeared anxious. Her eyes were bloodshot and she was constantly
Objection,
fidgeting.
Your Honor. Opinion. Objection, Your Honor. Opinion.
Okay, could you would you please explain the basis of your objection?
Your Honor, the prosecution witness, Mr. Strait, just jumped to the conclusion that my client, Ultra Parker, appeared anxious. It's an opinion.
Okay, would the prosecution like to respond to that?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, Senior Officer Strait has been working in checkpoints and drug-related issues for a long time, and he is capable of giving that opinion about what a possible suspect acts like and what a person's demeanor is. And Senior Officer Strait's written statement also says this. So Senior Officer Strait can give opinion to this court as a police officer who handles this kind of issues on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your Honor, may I add something?
I'll let you do a brief response.
Your Honor, I believe Senior Officer Strait is a police officer, not a psychologist. So I guess he has experience regarding the traffic checkpoint, not on the people's demeanor, psychological appearance.
Okay. So I would like to ask my fellow judges to consider this objection, and if anyone has thoughts on whether we should allow Officer Strait to answer this question, let's have that conversation. Does someone want to lead it off?
I would possibly allow it, but only if there are the question was rephrased and there were follow-up questions about what exactly in Eltra Parker's demeanour made you think she looked anxious. So if there were very specific questions asked about her behaviour, etc., I would lean towards allowing it.
Okay. Anyone else? Do others agree with that, or do they have other comments?
That's fine. Agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me that before we rule, that the prosecution is sort of admitting that they're asking for opinion evidence, and I agree with Judge Jane that it's one thing to talk about ask questions about the characteristics of what Eltra Parker was doing and how she looked and how she acted. That to me is I think different than coming to the conclusion that she was anxious. So maybe we should sustain the objection but allow the prosecution to ask some foundational questions, and then we'll see where it leads. Does that sound good from the judges? Okay.
Yes, agree.
Okay. So we've listened to the objection and the response. It's sort of a tough call here. There are definitely questions that could be asked of Eltra Parker that might lead to this question, surrounding this question, but the question itself about being anxious does seem to be more in the line of an opinion than it does describing Eltra Parker's characteristics. And it appears that the prosecution agrees with the fact that this is opinion testimony. So we're going to sustain the objection, meaning that you should rephrase your question. It's okay to ask about how Eltra Parker was acting, and but not the final opinion of the officer in terms of characterizing it.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, may I rephrase it and put some foundation in it before asking about her final demeanor?
You may proceed along those lines, yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay. Senior Officer Strait,
Yes.
can you tell us how Eltra Parker was acting at that time?
Well, her eyes were bloodshot and she was constantly fidgeting and looking at her watch. She avoided direct eye contact with me.
Okay. Senior Officer Strait, these actions what conclusion did you make and what opinion did you make from her?
In my opinion, the driver appeared anxious.
Your Honor, objection.
Okay, what's the basis of your objection?
Your Honor, again, the senior officer started jumping into the conclusion. I didn't object about the specific characteristics, but he again jumped into the conclusion of the driver appearance regarding anxiousness.
Okay, prosecution, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, Senior Officer Strait just described how she was acting, and after that, Senior Officer Strait, after giving the foundation about how she was acting, now Senior Officer Strait can give an opinion and can give his testimony that how the defendant appeared to him according to the actions of the defendant.
Okay, thank you. Judges, now how do you feel about the question? Do you think it should come in, or do you still feel that it's asking for an opinion that we should, I guess, strike that response?
I think that's allowable because we are in a pre-trial hearing. Senior Officer Strait is attempting to justify why he had a suspicion and why he decided to search the vehicle. So it's my view that an opinion about Eltra Parker appearing anxious is admissible in this context, as long as it is the basis for that opinion has been set out, which it has.
Okay. Other judges want to comment, or do they agree with Judge Jane?
Agree with Judge Jane.
Okay. All right, then I think this time we will overrule the objection. I'll say that I think Judge Jane articulated it well, so I don't need to re-articulate the reason. I do think it's a close call on this one, because I think this clearly is seeking the opinion of the officer, but in the context of what's trying to be established, and because this is a pre-trial hearing, we're going to allow it. That does not necessarily mean that this type of evidence would be allowed at the trial if this case proceeds to trial, but for pre-trial hearing purposes, we'll allow it. So the question's already been answered, and prosecution, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Senior Officer Strait, can you tell us what happened after that?
After that, I informed the driver that I would need to do a search of the vehicle. Parker responded in an aggressive tone. Why? I have nothing to hide. I replied saying, would you both please step out of the vehicle? Both of them got out of the vehicle. Kara then walked around to stand beside Parker on the sidewalk.
Okay. So upon checking her car, what did you find?
When Officer 5 and I conducted a search of the vehicle, we observed one package that appeared different to all the other packages, as it was marked with an address but no name. Officer 5 and I decided to open the package and found a large self-sealed baggie containing white powder.
Okay. Who found the evidence in the car?
It was me and Officer 5, both of us.
Okay. After that, what did you do?
I then walked over to Parker and Carrier and told them that I needed to do a first search. At that time, Officer 5 took the baggie of white powder and walked to the trunk of the police car. I asked both Parker and Carrier if either had any dangerous weapons or illegal substances on their persons that I should be aware of. Both replied no. I proceeded to conduct a first search, first on Parker, then on Carrier. The search revealed nothing of interest.
Okay. After that, what did you do?
I then advised Parker that she was under arrest for possession of a dangerous drug with intent to sell. At that time, I told both of them that they had the right not to say anything to us and had the right to have an advocate.
What did the defendant do at that time?
Parker voluntarily explained, I already asked for an advocate and you did not give me one. Why are you arresting me? I don't use drugs anymore.
Okay. After you placed the defendant in the back of the police car, what did you see Officer 5 doing?
After placing the defendant in the back of the police car, I went to the trunk to check on Officer 5. He had placed the baggie containing white powder in an evidence bag and wrote his initials, the date, time, and location of where the evidence was obtained.
Yeah, and you saw that?
Yeah.
How much time did he take?
Well, I can't remember exactly, but just about the time it needs to log and write details, not more than that.
Okay. Why wasn't Officer 5's signature in the evidence bag?
His initials were in the evidence bag. No law states that in the evidence bag, his signature is absolutely necessary. Initials can work.
Okay. Okay. When you gave the evidence to Abby Sutro in the police station, let's come to the police station's incident. When you gave the evidence to Abby Sutro, did you put your signature in the chain of custody form?
Yes.
Okay. Who was the primary handler of the evidence?
As I said above, Officer 5 and I, both of us were the primary handler of the evidence.
And whose signature is there in the chain of custody form?
It's mine as a primary handler.
Okay. So why Officer 5's signature wasn't in the chain of custody form?
When we arrived at the Central Police Station, Officer 5 had to leave on an urgent family matter. That's why.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to ask another question. Was the evidence compromised or tampered at any point when you handled?
As far as I'm concerned, the evidence was handled properly, and I was there the whole time in the checkpoint, so nothing happened to the evidence in the checkpoint.
Okay. So my last question. Did you know the defendant prior to the arrest that day?
No, sir.
That would be all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense advocate, would the defense like to cross-examine this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Am I audible to you, Mrs. Strait?
Yes.
Yes.
Good morning, Ms. Strait.
Good morning.
Mrs. Strait, on 1st March 2020, you stopped my client Alta Parker's car at 11 a.m. at Pacific Avenue. Is that correct?
At the checkpoint, yes.
So after the inspection of identification and license, you asked my client to step out of the car to conduct the search.
Yes.
After my client stepped out of the car, did you tell my client in a plain and clear language that her movement was not restricted?
Can you repeat the question?
After my client stepped out of the car, did you tell my client in a plain and clear language that her movement was not restricted?
That what?
Her movement was not restricted.
Yes.
Did you say it to her?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay, after my client stepped out of the car, did you tell my client in a plain and clear language that her movement was not restricted?
Was restricted.
Her movement was not restricted.
No.
Okay. Mrs. Strait, are you aware of section 148B of Jalchano Criminal Code?
And can you say the law, please?
Yes, persons who are not free to live by a police officer must be informed that they have a right to advocate and right to remain silent.
Yes.
So did you inform my clients her those rights at that particular moment?
She wasn't charged yet, so I just kept searching.
Yeah, you just said you did not tell my client that her movement was not restricted. Am I right?
Can you explain it in another way?
Yeah. Did you tell my client that she was free to leave?
She was not free to leave.
Thank you. And still you did not air the rights of my client that she has right to remain silent and right to advocate.
When she was under arrest, yes, I informed her that.
Yeah, I got that, but I'm asking you. You said she was not free to leave. Did you tell her from the moment she was not free to leave, make her aware of her rights that she was not free to leave and she has right to remain silent and right to advocate?
Objection, Your Honor.
What is your objection?
Your Honor, it's harassment of the witness. The witness is a police officer, not a lawyer. So asking legal questions to the witness is not according to this. It's harassing the witness, Your Honor. These are legal questions.
Do you wish to respond, defense?
Yes, Your Honor. According to section 148B, a person who is not free to live by a police officer, the police officer must inform the person that she has right to remain silent and right to advocate from the moment she is not free to live, Your Honor. That's why I'm just trying to confirm whether the officer Strait followed the law that day.
Okay, thank you. Judges, do someone want to respond to that among us, and then we can decide?
Overruled.
I think the objection doesn't seem to be sustainable.
Yeah, I agree.
Agree.
So
I would
okay.
agree with that.
I also agree, yeah.
Okay, we're going to overrule the objection. Defense, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will ask the question again. So did you inform my client's right from the moment she was not free to leave?
I didn't inform her.
Thank you. Ms. Strait, during when you asked my client to step out of the car to conduct the search, she asked, "Do I need an advocate? How can I get one?" Is that correct?
Yes, those not questions, those not statements.
I just said she asked. Okay, I'm moving to the next question. Did you respond to that query?
No, she wasn't charged with anything at that time.
Okay. And you are the only law enforcement agent there?
Can you repeat the question slowly?
Okay. And you were the only law enforcement agent there on that particular moment.
Can you repeat?
And you were the only law enforcement agent there.
I was there with Officer 5.
Yeah. And I am asking about the moment you asked my client to step out of the car, to conduct the search, the specific moment. You are the only law enforcement agent there. Am I right?
Yes.
Thank you. Officer Strait, in your testimony, you have mentioned that Officer Bent arrived at time when you found the package containing white powder with Officer 5. Is that correct?
He arrived before I arrest Eltra Parker, and I didn't know the exact time.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So according to your testimony, Officer Bent was present there before what you claimed as informing my client, Eltra Parker, about her rights. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Strait, are you aware of section 745.25?
And can you state the law?
Yeah. According to the law, there are some requirements to procedure the accuracy of the chain of custody at the crime scene. Am I right?
Can you repeat it?
Yeah. According to this law, there are some requirements to follow to proceed to establish the accurate procedure of chain of custody as the alleged crime scene.
It was not crime scene.
Alleged crime scene. Yeah.
Yes, I know the law.
So, Mrs. Strait, you are saying that it was not crime scene.
Yes, at that time.
And after you found and what you suspected as drugs, it was still not crime scene.
After I put Eltra Parker under the arrest of possession of drug dealing, it was a crime scene.
Well, I'm talking about the moment you suspected there was drugs in the Eltra Parker's car. Are you telling that that moment that was not crime scene?
It wasn't tested, so I cannot go to the conclusion that it is crime scene.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Strait. So, Mr. According to the section 745.5, the found evidence needed to be photographed. Am I right?
Can you repeat the law, please?
Yeah. According to section 745, to establish the accurate procedure of chain of custody, there are some requirements. One of them is the found evidence needed to be photographed. Am I right?
Yes.
And you only hand over the alleged white powder as evidence at the police station.
I found it with Officer 5. Both of us searched the car and found it.
Yeah, and you just only hand over the alleged white powder to the evidence custodian at the police station. Am I right?
I submitted to Abby Sutro, yes.
Thank you. And again, as per section 745.5, the found evidence needed to be noted about detailed condition and description of the found evidence. Am I right?
Can you repeat the law, please?
Again, as per section 745.25, to establish the accurate procedure of chain of custody, there needed to be the detailed notes, condition, description of the found evidence. Am I right?
Yes.
And in your statement, you said 5 only noted time, location, and his initial. Am I right?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Strait. Now, did you put your initials at the alleged crime scene at first place?
Can you repeat?
Did you put your initials at the alleged crime scene at first place?
I was not. And the initials was on the evidence bag, and it belongs to Officer 5.
Ms. Strait, I would humbly request you to answer me with yes or no. If I need an explanation, I would humbly ask you again. So I'm going to repeat the question. Did you put your initials at the alleged crime scene?
No. It was not my duty at that time.
Oh, I see. It was not your duty. Mrs. Strait, in your statement, you said 5 placed the white powder, alleged white powder, in an evidence bag. Am I right?
Can you repeat?
In your statement, you said 5 placed the alleged white powder in an evidence bag. Am I right?
Can you repeat?
Okay, I'm going to repeat. In your statement, you said 5 placed the alleged white powder in an evidence bag.
Can you explain it in another words?
I guess this is what you have stated in your statement. That's what I can tell you, like from your statement.
And can you tell me what statement it is?
In your statement, you said Officer 5 placed the baggie containing the alleged white powder in an evidence bag.
Yes, correct.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you, Ms. Strait.
Prosecution, would you like to re-examine this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution would like to re-examine the witness.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, Officer Strait, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the defense advocate asked you some questions that when the defendant Elder Parker asked that, do I need a lawyer? How can I get one now? Why didn't you provide her a lawyer? Okay. Now I'm asking you, why didn't you provide her a lawyer?
Okay, so at that time, firstly, those are questions, those were not statements. And I didn't interpret it as her necessity for a lawyer. So I didn't provide her with a lawyer.
Okay. Was she charged yet with anything at that time?
At that time, no.
Okay. Okay, so there was a confusion about evidence bag and evidence container. Now, my question is, why wasn't the evidence in an evidence container? And what do you mean by an evidence bag?
Okay, so we put the evidence in an evidence container, and you can call it evidence bag. It's the same thing.
So you put it in a new bag. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I put it in a new bag, and we
Oh.
called it evidence container, and you can call it evidence bag. It's the same thing.
Okay. That will be all, Your Honor.
Thank you.